Hello guys, welcome back to the GKS series. As a follow-up with the initial video I made, for this video I'm planning to discuss more in-depth on the requirements for the GKS program. So basically there's a list or like a checklist that you can use to guide you with all the requirements that you'll be needing to prepare for this scholarship. As mentioned in the video before, we have additional documents and the required documents. So I'll be listing every documents based on the checklist, and then give some information on how you can prepare these documents, and then what are the do's and don'ts in preparing these documents. Every February, the announcement from NIIED, they will be releasing a form, the GKS application form, alongside with guidelines on how you would be providing the documents, as well as the different universities that participates for the GKS and their contact details. So everything should be downloaded and should be read by the applicant. So meaning you should know by heart the deadlines, the eligibility requirements, everything from age requirements, grade requirements, nationality requirements, even the slots for embassy and university track. You should read them prior to going to the application form. This would be critical because at instances that you will not be qualifying to those eligibility, any preparation from this stage moving forward would be invalid. So after clearing things out, you're now going to be in the form. So the application form, as shown here, would be comprised of different questions. For the application form, you need to answer them truthfully and honestly, and provide the accurate information. What I mean by that is you should provide correct spelling based on your passport for your name, your place of birth, your location, your name of your parents. Every information should match with the supporting documents that you will give. This is a way for them to check if you're there are mistakes or possible fraud. They are really stringent in terms of they provide stringent assessment on this document, especially since it's hard if people would be submitting fraudulent documents. So as part of the first step of assessment, they would check if the spelling of your name is correct, the birthday you indicated is correct, everything, name of your parents, nationality of your parents are correct. If you're claiming that you're from a descendant of a Korean veteran, they would check everything. So make sure everything aligns with the supporting documents you are submitting. When completing the form, I would suggest it would be cleaner if you'll be using Adobe in order to fill out the form. But if your handwriting is neat and then you can accurately answer all the questions, you can use your handwriting to complete the form. But for my personal preference, I would opt to use my computer and typing in directly for easy corrections, and in case of changes, it would be easier for me to alter the information I'll be putting in. So just for clarity and cleanliness, I would opt to use Adobe when filling out the form. Part of the form, they are asking for your language ability test scores. If you don't have valid TOPIK or valid IELTS score, but I mean valid is not expired, the expiry date is still far from the date of submission for this application, I would suggest to indicate them in the form. However, if they're already expired, I would suggest not putting or indicating in the application form that you have this certificate. The next one would be the published books and research papers. So if you're specifically under the sciences and engineering, wherein research papers are heavily produced, so this would be a portion for you to indicate all your research papers or your published documents. Make sure they are published and then they're searchable online, for the idea that the reviewers might actually check them. So if it's not searchable or at least viewable online in terms of is it published or not, it might create an idea to the reviewers that is this really a legitimate research paper or a publication, because it should be published, right? As for the next portion will be the thesis. For me, I was not able to put anything on this because my bachelor's degree doesn't require me to finish one, because as a business major, instead of thesis, we were asked to create like business plans and case studies. So for those who have these theses, better for you to put or acquire a copy of the front page of your thesis. Anything additional information inside the thesis would be sufficient. As a tip, seek signature or certification from your university that this actually exists. The thesis actually exists, and these are the grades you received defending or when you were defending the thesis. And if much better if you'll be able to secure signatures from those who reviewed, or like the panelists specifically who reviewed your thesis. This would give credibility in terms of the thesis you're indicating. For the next one is the previously achieved degree. As a tips, I would suggest you would write it in terms of recency. The ones you recently achieved will be put on the first row, and then followed by the next or the other degrees you have achieved. So it would be easier for them to track which degree are you in or which degree have you taken in terms of like the sequencing of that one. Following this one, you'll be asked for your GPA. So in the NIID guidelines, there is a grading system they are sharing with you, the conversion in terms of the American and the standardized grading system. Everything they in relation to grade, they have it in the guidelines. However, if your grading system is totally different from the provided grading system by NIID, it's okay to put your grading system as is, provided that you'll be able to secure certification from your university stating that this is the actual grading system you have. Next, you have a certification in terms of how do you convert your grade. For example, in my country, 1.0 is the highest grade and 3.5 is the failing grade. In my transcript of records, the list of my grades, there is a specific portion on that indicating the conversion. Like from this range, this would be the percentile equivalent. So I was able to use that as like basis of information on how I can say that my grade is on this level. So if you are confused on what to use, just check first your transcript of records. If there is like conversion in terms of percentile, that would be easier to check. Like for example, it's 93, 95, 97, that would be better and easier to gauge. However, if that grading system doesn't exist, seek assistance from your university in your respective countries to certify any conversions that you have tried resorting to. We have WES and the Scholaro. You can use those sites for the conversions. However, I'm not really sure for other countries if that would be possible. Okay, below that would be for like those who have employment history. As a tip for this portion, make sure when you're gonna put something under this, the employment history must be something relevant to what you are applying for, or at least what you finished in your bachelor's degree. Although some would argue that okay, my degree was totally different from what I was working on. That's also okay, but yeah, as mentioned, it would be harder on the reviewer's perspective, on the applicant's documents reviewer's perspective. It would be like harder for me to connect things if what you accomplished in your bachelor's degree is totally different from what you are doing. Although that won't be affecting your overall grade or percentage or like performance in terms of the document assessment, I would think that you would need to put extra effort in terms of writing your personal statements and study plans in order to like fill in the gaps. Like how come you graduated from this degree but you're doing this work? You should be able to provide substantial information on to bridge the difference. Like for example, maybe the opportunities for this specific job is very hard to get in your country. That's why you resorted to working under this department or industry just so you can survive, to support your family. Those things would be important, and then those things would be, at least the reviewer will be able to understand, okay, that's why he resorted to this type of work or job. It's just because then it's necessary for him to have this job. Something like that. Everything I've mentioned before, the things under the employment, topic grades, the universities, these things are part of the Form 1, which is the application form. Okay, for the Form 2, which is the personal statement, and the study plan for the Form 3, I will be crafting a different video for this one. Because I think it would need more emphasis on how to do the structure, and then also I was able to create a video or mention this in my previous video already. So in my future videos, creating another video specifically for these two essays, so that you'll be able to have a guide on how would you write them. And Form 4 is for those who are research applicants, so it's critical for you to check the description per form, because there is like this is only needed for research program applicants, and that not be applicable for the graduates, masters, and PhD. One of the most important part of this application requirements would be the Form 5, which is the recommendation letters. In my previous interactions with previous applicants who sought clarification on this, they've been asking a lot of questions about, is it possible to get more than 2 recommendation letters? To whom should I seek recommendation letters? In terms of content, in terms of validity of these recommendation letters, I've been receiving those questions. So this will be answered here. So for the question about seeking more than 2 recommendations letters, it's possible, but yeah, the only requirement for the application is only 2. And the question about to whom should I seek my recommendation letter from, I would suggest you get one from your professor from your home country university, or anyone that can give information about your academic competencies. Like for example, if you work under, if you have been a research assistant and then been providing assistance to a teacher, a professor, you're under his team, this professor can give or attest to your academic competencies, then you can use that, you can seek assistance or recommendation letter from that specific professor. It's not necessary that you have to seek from someone who taught you when you're in your bachelor's degree or in your master's degree if you're applying for PhD. It's someone that can assess your academic competencies. That's one. And for the second one, you can seek the second recommendation letter from either your manager, supervisor, anyone from the higher ups in your work, if you've been working for a long time, since this would be the different dimension or perspective about you. Like, how do you function in your work? How do you function with meeting deadlines, handling projects, leading teams? So these recommendation letters would be impactful for your application, as the reviewer gets an insight of you from other people's perspective. So if you're asking if it's possible, is it possible to get 2 recommendation letters from my work because I cannot contact my professors anymore? It would be harder, and I won't suggest you doing that, because again, these recommendation letters must be geared towards providing the reviewers of the document a different perspective relating to your academic competencies. So if you just seek recommendation letter from your work-related network, it will be hard for them to provide insights on your academic competencies. Is that clear, or like it gives you an idea on to whom you should ask for? Because I've encountered those who graduated 15 years ago from their bachelor's degree, and they cannot even remember those who were like taught them or have contacts with them. So it's harder to get one. But the thing is, you must really get someone who can assess you based on an academic standpoint. This is a critical part of the documents you need to submit. NIAID provided a specific instruction on how you would be preparing these documents. So based on the guidelines, you must put the F5 recommendation form alongside with the recommendation letter in an envelope. And these envelope must be sealed, and then this flap of the envelope must be signed by the one who made the recommendation letter. So for the university track, you only need to prepare one copy of this one. So each recommendation letter should be sealed in an envelope. So in the end, you'll be getting two separate recommendation letters. For the embassy track applicants, this will be the process. You would seek 4 different copies of the recommendation letter and ask your professor or your boss to seal these 4 recommendation letters alongside with the recommendation form. As mentioned earlier, you need to have them sealed and have them sign the envelope flap, meaning you're not allowed as an applicant to check what they wrote. Any sign of you opening the recommendation letter would mean that it's invalid. So make sure when the recommendation letter arrives under your possession, you won't touch it, you won't do anything about it, and then just include it with the actual sets of application documents that you'll be submitting, regardless of embassy or university track. Is it clear now? Okay. Following the recommendation letter, it's the form 6. I think this is also for research applicants only, so I'll be skipping this one. Now the F7, the form 7, which is the GKS applicant's agreement. Before completing or at least signing this, read all the stipulations, make sure you understand what are you applying for, and then because it's included there that these documents will not be returned to you. So you should know by now that anything you submit to them would not be returned to you, regardless if it's diploma, your birth certificates, your TOR. If those are original copies, it won't be returned to you, regardless if you pass or not. So make sure to take note of that. It is a medical assessment. You don't need doctors to assess you or to assist you in assessing this, but it will be more of a self-assessment. However, be truthful when answering these questions, because there'll be a medical checkup or medical exam for those who will be passing the next round. So even if you say that you are not this, you don't have this, you don't have this, these results would appear on the medical examination. So better be truthful as early as now than make a scene when the medical examination results come out, We have accomplished the different forms. Let's go back to the checklist. And on the checklist, the requirement number 9 and requirement number 10 includes your Apostilled TOR and your diploma. With the new announcement from NIAID, they are requiring every applicant to submit Apostilled documents. So for the 9 and 10, this will be covered by the Apostilled TOR and diploma. So as mentioned, you need to apostille your documents. I know it is very expensive, especially for other countries. Like in my country, it's already very expensive and hard to get a schedule. But since it's the new announcement, everyone has to follow it. You cannot submit notarized copies or original documents. Documents must be authenticated by the Korean consulate or apostille. Those are the 2 things that are accepted by NIAID. I'll be reiterating this all throughout this video. All things that should be authenticated and apostilled should be authenticated and apostilled. And if in case your diploma or TOR is not written in English nor in Korean, you must have these documents translated into English and then attach them with the original documents as proof of translation. So that's an extra step for those who are coming from countries that doesn't use English or Korean for their diploma and then transcript of records. Yeah, because the only language accepted for assessment would be either English or Korean. So anything aside from anything not written in English and Korean must be translated to English and Korean. I'll be reiterating this because it can cause your disqualification from the scholarship if they won't be able to understand the content of these documents. For the 16 and 17, this is for the birth certificate or your proof of citizenship. For Filipino scholars, what I do suggest is just seek NSO birth certificate of yourself, and then have the photocopy of it be apostilled at the TFA. Why? This is because your birth certificate can cover your proof of citizenship and your parents' proof of citizenship, because in the form, in the birth certificate, it contains those two information. So it's at least hitting two birds with one shot. If you need further proof, you may attach like scanned copies or photocopies of your parents' passport, but don't put it here on the form 16-17. Put it on the awards and certificates portion. Okay. Although I've mentioned this in the form 1, in the form 22, requirement 22, the topic scores or the English scores for the number 23, make sure it's valid, because these exam results have expiration dates, so make sure they are valid, and make sure that when you're submitting these documents, they are correct, accurate, and then follow the instructions given by NIAID when submitting these documents. For the requirement 25, which is the awards and certificates, as mentioned in the new rules from NIAID, you don't have to apostille these documents since they're just awards and certificates. So when submitting these documents, notarized copies or photocopies certified through copies is sufficient. However, again, if these awards and certificates are not written in English, there should be an English or Korean translation of these awards and certificates, and then the translation must be attached to the photocopy of the awards and certificates when you submit them, so when you show these documents, there is an equivalent that the reviewer can read and check that is readable and understandable for them, because again, it's easier for them to read it in English or in Korean only. Other languages would be harder for them to decipher. So I think we have discussed a lot about the document preparation, and the general tip that I can give you when completing these documents and completing the checklist is that be truthful, be accurate in terms of putting all the details you do. After you complete the checklist, read it twice, thrice, 4 times, 5 times. Ask someone, your friend, your family members, to check, okay, would this be enough? Is this understandable for you? Do you think this is correct? Did I really put the correct information in the correct order? Because when compiling these documents, you must follow the numbering. As if you've been hearing, there's a form 1, form 2, form 3, form 4. You must submit the documents in that order as well. Hence the need for you to label these documents. So for the critical part of labeling, it's easier for them to check the partitions you made in terms of the documents. That's why you should put labels on them. In terms of labeling, what I did for my application form was that I put stickers, like sticker paper, the ones that can be easily peeled off if you peel them off, but would have this adhesion that would be strong enough for it not to fall apart or be removed while they are reviewing my document. It's like I was able to get a copy of one of the documents I prepared for this scholarship, and this one is a certification. This is like a certification that the medium of instruction in my university was English. So obviously I'll put this on the awards and certificates, right? So I printed out on a sticker paper and cut it and just put it on the upper right side of the document here. So I'm looking at the document now. I'm looking at the document on the upper right side. So there's instructions for how you would put the stickers, the labels. So you just have to follow them. It's big enough for them to see that this is under awards and certificates, but it's not that so big that it covers the whole document. You see? Yeah. So I'll put this in my application form, and then that's it. So you see there, this is just an extra copy of what I submitted. So it covered a lot, from the completion of the form, preparation of different documents from 1 to 26, and actually to the actual labeling, to the completion of the recommendation forms. I hope you learned something on how you would prepare your documents and at least move with the other steps of this scholarship. So you can now focus on your Form 2 and 3, which is the personal statement and study plan. And yeah, hopefully by next month or next month, February or March, the guidelines will be released by NIAED. Once it is released, again, read everything. There might be changes, there might be adjustments, but the one that's critical for you to remember is the apostille documents. And yeah, that's it. Bye.